I know there's a lot of people out there who don't believe in spirits or ghosts, who think the whole idea of a spirit realm is just nonsense. I used to be somewhere in the middle myself, but after what happened to me, I believe it without question now. When I was 14, I had a distant cousin named Benjamin. We called him Benny. He was obsessed with the paranormal, all kinds of spiritual and magic practices, genuinely believed in ghosts in a way that went beyond just being into spooky stuff. He used to tell us he'd lived this life multiple times before, said he knew exactly when and how he was going to die. I remember asking him once how he thought it would happen, and he told me it would be painful and it would happen in front of everyone. We brushed it off, kids being kids, Benny just trying to be creepy for the fun of it. But there was one thing about him that always put me on edge. He could read minds, or at least it felt that way. He'd tell you what you were thinking before you said it, sometimes finish your sentence before you got the words out. I told myself it was just him being intuitive. Some people are like that, but it never sat right with me. 3 days after Thanksgiving, I heard my mom let out a scream from downstairs. I jolted up out of bed and went to the top of the stairs to listen. Benny had been in an incident and was pronounced dead at the scene. Witnesses said they saw a man in a gray hoodie walk straight in front of a train. No hesitation. They ruled it a suicide. It never sat right with any of us. Benny wasn't depressed. If anything, he was one of the most joyful people I knew. But that's not really the story I want to tell. That's just the part you need to know before what happened next. We lived in a rural area outside Knoxville, Tennessee. Behind our house was a stretch of woods. Me and my friend Abel used to go back there all the time, mess around, nothing serious. We never went in too deep. But one day we decided to push past where we normally stopped, just to see what was out there. The deeper we went, the more the whole place started to feel off. We came up on a creek, and on the other side of it there was a figure. Couldn't tell what it was at first. Looked like a man, naked, just standing there watching us. I don't know what came over Abel, but he yelled out, "Hey, skinny butt." The thing charged at us, came right through the creek, straight in our direction. We took off running, and at some point I lost track of Abel completely. The thing was chasing only me now. I looked back once, and it was maybe 6 feet behind me. Then, the ground just wasn't there anymore. I fell about 30 feet into what I can only describe as a pit. I don't remember the fall itself, just waking up at the bottom of it, unable to feel anything from my waist down. I screamed, and for what felt like 30 minutes, I just laid there crying in the dark. I genuinely thought that was it for me. Then, I heard a voice from above. I recognized it immediately. It was Benny. He didn't explain how he was there, didn't say anything about it at all. He just stayed calm and told me he was gonna drop a rope down and that I needed to use my arms to get it secured and start pulling myself up while he guided me from the top. My legs weren't gonna work. He knew that without me telling him, but my arms still could. He kept talking the whole time I was climbing, kept my mind on his voice instead of on how high up I still had to go. I don't remember getting to the top. I don't remember much of anything after that, just pieces. I remember his voice telling me to stay awake. I remember seeing trees passing above me at some point. The next clear memory I have is my parents' faces over me, and then the hospital. They told me I'd never walk again. Abel's body was found at the creek, severe impact to the head. They never gave us a clean explanation for what actually happened to him out there, only that he hadn't survived it. I never walked again either. I'm on support now, full time. I joined a community for people with disabilities, people who understand a different kind of life than the one I thought I was going to have. Sometimes I share this story with people there, and I can see it on their faces. Nobody fully believes me. I don't blame them. I know how it sounds. But I know what I experienced. I know whose voice that was in that pit. I'm in a much better place now. I've started writing my own books, found some peace in that. But every so often I still drift back to that night, the sound of that voice coming down into the dark, telling me exactly what to do.
This happened in 2022, a few weeks after my friend Judy finalized her divorce. It was a Saturday night, and she wanted to go out. Not just dinner or something quiet, she wanted a proper night out. She had just gotten the house in the settlement, plus alimony, and I think she felt like she finally had her life back. We went to a bar in Milwaukee. Nothing fancy, just loud music, crowded floor, sticky tables, the kind of place where people don't really pay attention to anything outside their group. Judy was already tipsy when we got there, and it didn't take long before she was fully drunk. I hadn't seen her like that in a long time. The last time she acted like that was when she got promoted years ago. She kept laughing at small things, hugging random people, just letting loose. I stayed closer to the bar most of the time. I don't drink much, so I was just watching her, making sure she was okay. That's when I noticed this guy. He was standing near the DJ booth, not dancing, just kind of watching. Tall, good-looking, dressed well. I remember he had on an Amiri top, which stood out because most people there were dressed casual. He wasn't doing anything obvious, but he kept looking at Judy. Not in a normal way. It felt like he was studying her. At first, I thought maybe he just liked her. It's a bar, that happens. I didn't think too much of it. Judy was dancing with some random guy for a bit. Then I saw the guy from the DJ area walk over and sort of blend into the crowd near her. He didn't just approach her directly, he kind of matched her movement, like slowly getting into her space without making it obvious. After a minute, they were dancing together. Something about it felt off, but I couldn't really explain why. It wasn't anything clear, just a feeling. I brushed it off because, again, it's a bar, people meet like that all the time. But then I noticed Judy leaning in, saying something to him. I couldn't hear anything over the music, but her face looked different. Not playful anymore. A few seconds later, he grabbed her wrist and lifted her arm like he was trying to spin her or something. She pulled her arm away quickly. That's when I stepped in. I went over and asked if everything was okay. Judy didn't even answer the question properly. She just said, "I want to go. I'm not comfortable. Let's go." She sounded serious, not drunk serious, but actually serious. I asked what happened, and she just shook her head and said, "I'll tell you later. Please, can we just leave?" So we left. We stepped outside, and it was already late. The street wasn't completely empty, but it was way quieter than inside. Judy was still drunk, kinda leaning on me as we walked. We booked an Uber, and it said it would take a while. At first, we were just gonna wait outside the bar, but Judy didn't want to stay there. She kept glancing back at the entrance, like she was expecting someone to come out. There was a gas station about a 10-minute walk away, and I suggested we wait there instead. I wasn't fully comfortable leaving the area, but she really wanted to go. Looking back, that was a bad call. By the time we got to the gas station, it was closed, lights off, doors locked. The whole place was dark. We sat on the curb near the building. There was no one else around, no cars, no foot traffic, just us. We kept checking the Uber app. The driver kept saying he was close. 10 minutes turned into 20. then 30. At some point, I saw headlights coming down the road. I thought it was our ride, so I stood up a little. As the car got closer, I realized there were 2 people inside. When it slowed down in front of us, I recognized the driver. It was the guy from the bar. He rolled the window down and looked right at us, like this was completely normal. He asked if we needed a ride. I said, "No, we're good. Our Uber's almost here." He just stared at me for a second, then shrugged like it didn't matter, and drove off. I remember reaching into my bag right after that and holding my pepper spray. I didn't say anything to Judy about it. About 10 minutes later, while we were still waiting, I heard footsteps. Before I could even turn properly, 2 figures ran toward us. One of them grabbed Judy by the hair and pulled her down hard. She didn't even have time to react. I screamed, and the second guy came straight at me. He grabbed my throat and pushed me back. I couldn't breathe. I tried to pull his hands off, but I was already losing strength. I could see Judy on the ground. The other guy was kicking her. She wasn't moving much. I remember thinking, this is actually happening, and there's nothing I can do. My vision started going blurry. I could feel tears coming down, and I couldn't get any air in. Then suddenly, there was a loud sound, like a gunshot. The pressure on my throat released immediately. Both of them ran off without saying anything, just disappeared into the dark. I dropped to the ground, coughing and trying to breathe. Our Uber driver had finally arrived. He got out of the car holding something. I think it was a gun, but I didn't really process it fully at the time. He helped me up, then went straight to Judy. She was unconscious. We got her into the back seat, and he drove us to the nearest hospital. Judy barely made it. She had internal injuries, a concussion, a lot of bruising. She was in the hospital for a while. We reported everything to the police. I told them about the guy at the bar, how he followed us, how he came back. They looked into it, but there wasn't enough to charge him. No clear footage, no direct proof it was him. Just my word and what I thought I saw. Judy recovered, but she's different now. She doesn't go out late anymore. If she drinks, it's at home, usually with family. We never really talked in detail about what he said to her in the bar. Every time I bring it up, she just says, "It was nothing," and changes the subject. Honestly, I still think about how he found us at that gas station. It wasn't on the way from the bar. You'd have to actually look for us. And the way he looked at her that night, it didn't feel random. It felt planned.
We got to my grandfather's farmhouse on a Tuesday night. It was already dark by the time we pulled in. The driveway is long, just gravel cutting through open land. You don't really see the house until you're almost on it. I remember Claire saying it felt bigger than she expected. I told her it's about 80 acres total. Crops, a barn, a couple sheds. My grandfather lived there alone for years. As we got closer, we saw lights on inside the house. That threw me off. Nobody was supposed to be there. I parked anyway, and we just sat for a second, both of us looking at the windows. I said, maybe my mom didn't tell me something. Claire just nodded, but I could tell she was already a little uncomfortable. We walked up and knocked. It took maybe 10 seconds, then the door opened and it was my uncle, my mom's younger brother. He looked surprised for a second, then he smiled and pulled me into a hug. He said, "Hey man, didn't know you were coming out here." He stepped back and looked at Claire, gave a quick nod, then told us to come in. The house looked the same couch, same old TV in the corner, same dining table with the uneven leg my grandfather never fixed. There was still that smell too, like old wood and coffee. My uncle said he'd just been stopping by, going through some things. He said he wasn't going to mess up our stay and he'd be gone in the morning anyway. Honestly, that was a relief. I thought we were going to have to turn around and leave. Looking back, we probably should have.
My uncle, he's not someone people in the family like being around. He did time. 18 years for involuntary manslaughter, plus a few other charges. He got out a couple years before all this. People said he was trying to keep his head straight, but nobody really trusted him. That night was fine, though. We didn't really talk much with him. He mostly stayed in the kitchen, going through cabinets, moving stuff around. Claire and I went upstairs early. In the morning, he was gone. Didn't say goodbye or anything. His truck wasn't there and the house was quiet. Just us. We basically had the whole place to ourselves. The house and 80 acres of farmland. We made breakfast, just eggs and toast. Walked around the property after. I showed Claire the barn, the fields, the edges of the land. It takes a while to get around everything. It felt normal, calm. By evening, we were just hanging out inside. We cooked dinner, watched some random show, nothing special. After that, we played a little poker at the table. Didn't even keep score, just messing around. Around 1 a.m., we went upstairs. I don't know how long I'd been asleep when I heard it. An engine. At first I thought I was dreaming, but then it got louder, like someone revving, then slowing, then revving again. I got out of bed and went to the window. There was a vehicle out in the fields. Looked like a small truck or maybe a van. I couldn't see it clearly, but I could see the headlights moving through the crops. And it wasn't staying on the path. It was driving straight through the field. I just stood there watching it for a second. My first thought was someone was stealing something or messing around, I don't know. But then I saw how much of the crops it was running over. I said, "What the hell?" And Claire got up behind me. She saw it too. I told her I was going down there. She grabbed my arm and said, "No, just call the police." I didn't want to, but she was right. We didn't know who it was. So I called. While I was on the phone, we could still hear the engine outside, just going back and forth, tearing through the field. The dispatcher told us to stay inside, lock everything, and don't go out there. After a couple minutes, the sound just stopped. We looked out again and the vehicle was gone. Police showed up maybe 20 minutes later. We told them what happened, showed them where we saw it. They walked the area with flashlights, looked at the tracks. One of them told us we should leave in the morning, just said it wasn't safe to stay out there right now. I called my mom the next day and told her everything. She went quiet for a second, then said my grandfather had been complaining about stuff like that before he died. Not vehicles, but disturbances, things out of place. He said he'd find food missing or see footprints going in and out of the barn. He reported it a few times, but nobody was ever caught. She told me the same thing the police did, leave. But I didn't. I don't know why. Part of me felt like if someone had been messing with my grandfather before he died, then maybe it wasn't random. I told Claire I wanted to stay one more night. She didn't like it, but she agreed. That whole day felt different. We didn't really relax. Every little sound made us stop and listen. I kept checking the doors, the windows. By night, I made sure everything was locked. Front door, back door, even the windows downstairs. I told Claire to just try to sleep. I said I'd stay up for a bit. I didn't sleep at all. I sat in the living room most of the night, just listening. Nothing happened. No engine, no lights, nothing outside.
Around maybe 3 or 4 a.m., I went to the kitchen to get some water. I didn't turn the light on right away. I just walked in, and there was someone standing there. I yelled and hit the light. It was my uncle. He just stood there staring at me. In his left hand, he had a hatchet. He looked off, not surprised, not angry at first, just focused. Then he said, kinda under his breath, "You piece of shit." And he started moving toward me. I didn't think. I just ran upstairs. I got into the bedroom and slammed the door shut, locked it. Claire woke up immediately. I told her, "Call 911 now." We could hear him coming up the stairs. Then he started hitting the door. The first hit cracked it. The second one went through a little. You could see the blade coming through the wood. Claire was on the phone, shaking, trying to talk. He kept hitting it over and over, yelling, "Where is it? Where is it, you motherfucker? I'll kill you." I didn't even know what he was talking about. At one point, the door was starting to split near the lock. I thought it was going to give. Then it just stopped. No more hits. We heard him walk away, fast. Then the front door downstairs slammed. Police got there not long after. I gave him his name, but before I even finished, one of the officers just nodded like he already knew. They found him later that day. He was charged again, but during everything that followed, they said he had serious mental issues. Schizophrenia, they said. Looking back, there were signs, but nobody had had anything officially diagnosed before. I asked my mom later what he could have been looking for. She said she didn't know, but the way she said it, it didn't sound like she was telling me everything. I never went back to that farmhouse after that. Claire and I didn't last much longer either, a couple months maybe. I don't blame her. I brought her out there, and I stayed when we should have left. Viewer discretion. This story I'm about to tell, it's a little graphic. If you're not used to that, you might want to ignore this. It's been about 15 years now, and it still haunts me. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever fully heal from it. 15 years ago, I went to visit my parents. I hadn't seen them in over 2 years since I moved to a new city, but we talked all the time. I was an only child, so it was normal for me, my mom, and my dad to be on the phone for hours sometimes. That's why it felt strange when for about 3 months communication got off. Whenever I called my dad, it would be short. He'd say he was busy, working on something. I'd ask about my mom, since her line wasn't even going through anymore, and he'd just say she wasn't around, or she went to visit friends. Now, my dad and my mom never really had a rosy marriage. I knew about their frequent fights. My dad can be, I don't want to say controlling, that feels too extreme, but he likes things a certain way. Still, most of the time they would argue and then get over it pretty quickly. But my mom was never the type to just leave like that, especially not for that long. I had been wanting to visit, but I kept pushing it because of work. Eventually, I told my dad I was coming to stay for a week. By the next day, I was in Boston. When I got to the house, it looked different, like they had renovated everything. New couches, different setup, even the walls looked freshly done. It didn't feel like the same house I grew up in. My dad opened the door, hugged me, said it was good to see me. First thing I asked was about my mom. His response was off. He said she was at her sister's place, said they had a verbal fight and she needed space. I didn't push it at first. I was just happy to be there. But the first 2 days weren't what I expected. It was just me and their cat Miso. My dad was in the basement almost the whole day, and when he wasn't, he was out. We barely talked.
He felt distant, like something was on his mind, but he wasn't saying it. What bothered me more was I still hadn't seen or heard from my mom. I asked him if she had maybe changed her number. He said, well, she hadn't been picking my calls too. I asked for how long. He said, about 3 months. No worry, nothing. That's when my stomach dropped a little. I texted my mom on Facebook. It took almost a day to reply. Hey Matthew, I'm fine. I'm at my sister's place. I'll be back soon. That was off. She never called me Matthew, always Matt.
I called my aunt. She told me straight up my mom wasn't with her. Said they'd been texting, but the last message she got was about a week ago. At that point, I knew something wasn't right. I confronted my dad and told him we were reporting her missing. He agreed, no pushback. Police came, asked questions, wrote everything down. They asked if my mom had any mental issues, and I said no. I told them about the texts about my aunt. They spoke to my dad separately, but in the end, they said since there was no clear sign of foul play and my dad claimed she left on her own, there wasn't much they could do immediately. They filed a report and said they'd follow up. Then they left. That didn't sit right with me. Days passed, then a week. Nothing. At some point, I kept thinking about the house, the renovations. It didn't make sense. One night, I heard sounds from the basement. That wasn't unusual. My dad was always down there. But then the smell started. It spread through the whole house. It was bad, strong enough that I had to step outside just to breathe. When I got outside, I saw the fire pit. My dad was there, burning something. I asked what it was. He looked kind of frantic and said, just some old stuff. Sorry about the smell. I didn't question it. I went back inside.
That's when I noticed the basement door was slightly open. I don't know why, but I just stood there for a second, looking at it, like I was waiting to hear something. It was quiet. I walked over and pushed it open a little more. Then I went down. The basement looked completely different. It wasn't how I remembered it at all. It felt finished, like someone had been spending a lot of time down there. There was a TV on one side, a couch, lights set up properly, even a refrigerator. It didn't match the rest of the house. I opened the fridge. There were groceries inside, drinks, and a lot of packaged meat, way more than made sense. I just closed it and stood there for a second. Something about it felt off, but I couldn't explain why. Then I noticed another door toward the back. I don't remember that door being there before. I walked up to it and just stood there for a few seconds. I don't even know what I was thinking. I almost turned back, but I didn't. I opened it. The smell hit immediately, way stronger than before. It was the kind of smell that makes you step back without thinking. I covered my nose and still stepped inside. The room looked wrong. There were plastic sheets hanging from the ceiling, covering parts of the walls. The floor looked like it had been cleaned too many times. And along the sides, there were large freezers. I just stared at them for a second. I didn't want to open any of them, but I still walked up to the closest one. I remember putting my hand on the lid and just leaving it there for a few seconds. Like if I didn't open it, then nothing would change. Then I lifted it. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It was just shapes, wrapped up tightly in plastic. I stared at it longer than I should have, trying to make sense of it. Then I noticed something through the plastic, and that's when it clicked. I shuddered immediately, just closed it and stepped back. I kept shaking my head like I was trying to tell myself I saw it wrong. I didn't want to believe it, but I already knew. I looked over at the other freezers.
And that's when it really hit me. There wasn't just one. I didn't open the others. I didn't need to. I turned and walked out of the room, faster this time, then up the stairs. By the time I got outside, I was already dialing 911. This time, the police didn't leave. They searched everything. They found multiple bodies. My mom was one of them, but not the only one. That part messed me up the most, because it meant this wasn't something that just happened. It had been going on. My dad was gone by then. They found his truck about 3 miles away, abandoned. They never found him. Later, they found out my mom had actually bought another house. All her belongings were there, even her phone, which meant the messages I got were from him, not her. They said he'd been doing this for a while. I still think about it, about my mom, about what she went through, and about the fact that the person who was supposed to protect her was the one who ended her. I went to therapy, tried to move on, but some things don't leave you. And the worst part is, there's no ending. He's still out there, or at least nobody ever found him. This happened back in 2019. I want to preface this by saying I'm not the type to scare easy. I'm also not really an outdoorsy person, but I had just quit my job. I was trying to get my first business off the ground, and I guess I wanted a change of scenery, something different. My parents had a small cabin back in Idaho, nothing fancy, just a little wood place they bought years ago for getting away from things. I called and asked if I could spend a few days out there by myself. They were happy to let me go. I booked a flight, packed up, and brought my dog Spark with me. He's a bull mastiff, big guy, calm most of the time, but he's got good instincts. I figured worst case, it'd just be me, him, and some quiet. When I got there, something felt off almost immediately. The cabin was surrounded by trees so thick that barely any sunlight made it through, even in the middle of the day, and the place itself looked rough, way more beat up than I remembered from the last time I'd visited years back. There were things scattered around outside. I couldn't even tell you what exactly, just clutter that shouldn't have been there. I grabbed my bags and went inside anyway. Inside, it looked like someone had been staying there. I knew my parents used the cabin from time to time, so my first thought was maybe one of them had been out recently and just hadn't cleaned up before leaving. But this was more than that. Next to the bed frame, there were empty cans of food. Looked like they'd been used recently, and a jar of water sitting there too. My parents wouldn't have left it like that. Nobody would. I told myself it was probably nothing. Maybe they'd let a friend use the place. Maybe someone had broken in at some point and crashed there for a night. I brushed it off and settled in for the evening. Around 1 a.m., Spark started growling. When he gets like that, it usually means something. I sat up, grabbed my flashlight, and looked out through the wooden window. I didn't see anything out there, no movement, nothing. But I knew, the way you just know sometimes, that something or someone was out there regardless. Spark went from growling to full-on barking, the aggressive kind, and my heart was pounding by that point. I got him calmed down enough to quiet down, and I grabbed my shotgun and went out to take a look around. Nothing. No footprints, no movement, nothing I could find. I figured it had to be an animal. Idaho woods are thick with deer and elk. It wouldn't have been the first time wildlife set a dog off in the middle of the night. I went back inside and tried to get some sleep. About 20 minutes later, Spark started up again. This time I looked toward the window and caught movement, just a shape against what little moonlight was cutting through the trees. I clicked my flashlight on and pointed it through the glass, and that's when I saw her properly, fiddling with the window frame like she was trying to get it open. I grabbed the gun again and shouted that whoever was out there needed to leave or they were gonna have a problem. I want to be honest, I half meant it as a warning more than anything. I didn't actually think anyone was gonna respond. Then I heard a voice, a woman's voice, and she said, "I know you're there, Matt." My stomach dropped straight through the floor. I didn't recognize that voice at all. Nothing about it matched anyone I knew, and she knew my name.
She started banging on the door after that, hard, fumbling with the doorknob like she was trying to force her way in. Spark was going off completely at this point, and I was standing there in the dark with my gun shaking in my hands. Out of pure panic, I fired through the door. The blast was deafening in that small space, and Spark went from full-on barking to dead silent in an instant. He pinned his ears back and pressed himself against my leg, which he never does. He's not a dog that scares easy either. Everything outside went quiet too. Those 3 minutes of silence after that shot felt like the longest stretch of my life. I didn't move, I didn't breathe right. I just stood there waiting for something, anything to tell me what had just happened. Then I heard someone running. I didn't wait around to figure out what that meant. I grabbed my things, grabbed Spark, and we left the cabin that same night. When I opened the door to leave, there were blood stains on the porch. My stomach turned. I didn't stop to look closer. I got in the car and drove straight to my parents' place.
The next day, I told them everything. They were just as shocked as I was. They had no idea who could have been staying in that cabin. No idea who would have known to call me by name out there. Nothing. We reported it to the police and they looked into it, but the investigation hit a wall almost immediately. No missing persons reports that matched, no blood match on file, no explanation for who that woman was, why she knew my name, or where she went after she ran. I haven't been back to that cabin since. My parents put it up for sale not long after. Never went back themselves either. Last I heard, it still hasn't sold. I think about that voice sometimes, the way she said my name like she'd been waiting on me specifically. I don't know who she was or what she wanted, and I don't think I'll ever get an answer.